Welcome to the Big O Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe.
Still the same damn kid from Oklahoma, same old dreams hanging off my shoulders, wishing and waiting on a shooting star for all to see.
And now your host, straight out of Oklahoma, former Buffalo Bill, Jerry Ostroski.
I'm still the same damn kid from Oklahoma.
Welcome to another episode of the Big O Show here on Thursday night, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, right here on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network. The Buffalo Bills have a lot of new faces this season, and they're going to need these four players to step up and have big-time performances for the Bills to play well in 2024. We'll get into that in a moment, but as always, folks, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're on YouTube. If you're over on Facebook Live, if you're on X, hop over to YouTube, get in the comments like everybody does. And we're making a really good push to 2,000 subs. Tell your friends, share it with people. Tell them to check us out on all our various shows during the week here on Overreaction Buffalo. You could also check us out on our website at overreactionbuffalo.com. And we're really, really excited to bring content, Buffalo Bills content, to you this upcoming season. But as we said at the beginning of the show, the Buffalo Bills got a ton of new faces. They're going to need these four guys. I looked at the roster. I looked at the guys that are new starters, maybe guys that started a little bit in the past. And I pinpointed four players that I truly believe the Buffalo Bills need to play well for them to have the type of season that they're accustomed to, and also that the Bills Mafia is accustomed to. So let's jump right into it. My first player is left guard David Edwards. David Edwards was a fifth-round pick in 2019 from Wisconsin. He's a guy that played for the LA Rams before he came to Buffalo, started 45 games for the Rams. He has 0 starts with the Bills. He's been a reserve offensive lineman, although he has come in some heavy sets where they've used him as a power blocking tight end, so to speak, has led some power, some traps, some different things like that. Also gotten in on short yardage. So the Bills have utilized David Edwards. Now, here's the thing about Edwards coming in, and you got to understand where the Bills are this season with the situation they have in the cap. The Bills need to hit on some cheaper veterans. They also need to hit on some rookies. With the cap situation being the way it is, the Buffalo Bills, they're having to be frugal. They can't spend the money that they want to spend to get some of these high-profile free agents in. So they're bringing in guys that maybe had some time elsewhere, or in the case of others, taking a chance on their own and signing them to shorter, undervalue extensions to bring guys in and have talent across the board. So talking about David Edwards, he struggled a little bit this preseason. If you watched his game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, had some technique issues. Edwards is not an overpowering guy. If you watch him in pass pro, he can get a little bit of push in the pocket, lining up with a head-up defensive lineman in the run game. Same thing. He's not a super powerful guy, but what he does fill is that person that the Bills are looking for right now in their offensive linemen, which is taller guys, longer guys, athletic guys. Edwards is definitely one of those people. Now, if you look at his best PFF grade through his 5 seasons in the NFL, his best grade was in 2020 at 70.3 overall. If you look at his PFF grades, his pass pro numbers are better than his run blocking numbers. And when you have a guy like Josh Allen, that's a premium. You want to be able to have offensive linemen that pass pro well because you know you have one of the premier quarterbacks in the NFL behind the line of scrimmage that can make huge plays at any time. So you got to put that emphasis on pass protection. Edwards is a guy that's better at pass protection if you look at the stats, if you look at the grades, than say run blocking. But I will say this about Edwards, and you have to understand what the Bills are doing schematically up front. They are much more of, we used to run zone back in the day, okay? You'll hear the term zone blocking, inside zone, outside zone. What that means is you've got, as a lineman, you take your steps, you have a zone or a track, think of it as an angled train track, and you have whatever player comes into your zone or on your track. It might be a half a man and you play through half a man as you go to second level. It might be a guy that's a 3 technique on you and he ends up down the middle of you, and now you have him with some inside help or outside help from another offensive lineman. There are a few single blocks in zone blocking that happen from time to time, depending upon defensive alignment. But most of the time, it's you and another lineman are working together with a down lineman and an assignment on the second level, whether it being a linebacker or a safety. In some instances, if it's tight ends and tackles, you might get involved with the corner. But that's how zone blocking works. But recently, with the inception of the longer, leaner type lineman that can run, zone blocking has, as opposed to being a north-south type of thing, has gotten more lateral. Things are flatter. Guys are coming out of their stance, taking bigger steps, removing themselves, and that defensive lineman still has to play his gap. So if his gap is the outside shoulder of a guard and he moves laterally and moves wide, he has to then move that way as well to have gap integrity. So therefore, you are now getting movement up front, not necessarily with power, but with athleticism, length, and movement. That's where a guy like Edwards prevails. He's that type of lineman. Connor McGovern the same way. I think Dion has some power to him, and he can get down and dirty if he needs to. Of course, we talk about Osiris Torrance and Brown all the time. They're more your true blue power dudes, although Spencer Brown is a longer, leaner offensive lineman. So the Bills are going to need David Edwards in that front five to really, really perform well, because if he does perform well and he's able to man that left guard spot the way that we hope he can, the way the coaches, the way the administration, Brandon Beane feels he can, now all of a sudden the Connor McGovern experiment at center can last a lot longer. You can allow him to get more comfortable. You can allow him to get those reps and become the center that everybody thought he was going to be since high school, right? I mean, we talk about it all the time. This is the number 1 rated high school center coming out his senior year in Connor McGovern, who then went to Penn State, drafted by the Cowboys, and now is a Buffalo Bill. So as Edwards goes into his 6th season, we need quality starts out of him to solidify this group up front, solidify the fact that we let Mitch Morris leave, we move McGovern to center, and now we have a vet that has 45 starts under his belt. So that's my first player as far as 4 players that need to step up for the Bills this season. That would be left guard David Edwards. My second player shouldn't be a shock to many, and he's a guy that's been in the news quite a bit lately. And that player is Cole Bishop, the 2nd-round pick out of Utah, 60th overall, 6'2", 207. A downhill physical safety. He can run as well. If you look at Cole Bishop and you look at his particulars, he fills the role, or he fills the void that Jordan Poyer left when he was released and signed with the Miami Dolphins. Cole Bishop is a guy that has been in the news because he's been out with injury. He has a shoulder injury. Recently, he has come back to practice. He's wearing the red jersey, which means no contact, but he is performing in defensive back and safety drills in practice. Bobby Babich had a press conference today. They talked at length about Cole Bishop, talked about just some of the different things they're doing to give him reps mentally so that he can be as prepared as he can be when he is finally cleared by the Bills medical staff to be able to come back to full contact and go back to trying to get that starting safety spot. Because as we know, I don't think any of us, besides Tyler Rapp, who has been relatively healthy through the preseason, we don't really know about the other spot. It was going to be DeMar Hamlin. He's out with a hamstring. It was going to be Mike Edwards. He hasn't practiced at all until today, recently. He's back and starting to do some things. He's not on the bike like most have been, the injured guys have been lately. He's actually been in practice and drills. So we don't know who that other spot's going to be. I think the Bills ultimately would like it to be Cole Bishop. You don't spend a second-round pick on a guy that you don't see eventually starting on your football team. I do believe that the Bills need to really be cautious and tread lightly with getting him back. We talked to Mookie Hawkins yesterday. Mookie talks about them slow playing Bishop to get him back and ready for week 1. Folks, we are 2 weeks away almost. I think it's like, I don't know, maybe 17 days, a little over 2 weeks away from NFL football starting. From the Buffalo Bills playing at home in the season opener and home opener against the Arizona Cardinals. Is Cole Bishop going to be ready to play? I don't know, but as I see him and I see his maturation and I see him going through OTAs, I see him going through mini camps, and then the little bit we saw of him in camp before the shoulder injury, I think you really have to ease him back into the lineup as he gets healthy and really, really push and hope that in the last half of the season, he starts to emerge as that guy at the safety spot. For the Bills to be what they want to be on defense, I really, truly believe that Cole Bishop needs to be in that starting lineup at some point and needs to be playing above his rookie label, because right now that's what he is, a rookie. So as we move along, talking about our 4 players that the Bills need to step up and play at a high level to have that type of season we all want them to have, because we talked about it at the opening of the show. The Bills are gambling on 2 types of players this season under cap circumstances, under cap jail, so to speak. That would be rookies and young players, and then veterans that maybe are undervalued veterans monetarily. My third guy that I look at, and this all of a sudden has become a huge point of emphasis with the Buffalo Bills, when you look at this guy, and this guy is, of course, Dorian Williams, the second-year player out of Tulane, third-round pick, 6'1", 228. He takes over now for the injured Matt Milano. And Milano, as we know, with the biceps injury, is not going to be back for a while. This is about a 4-month thing. Full disclosure, I'm a sports device rep in the day. I'm not just a content creator all the time, but I'm a sports medical device rep during the day. I sit in on surgeries like Matt Milano's. I spoke to a good friend of mine who's an orthopedic surgeon. When you look at this injury, how it's repaired, the timetable that it takes to get back, we're talking about a 4-month thing. So if we can get him back in December for a playoff push, I think that is something that I know I would be happy, and I think most Bills fans would be happy that he would be ready for the playoffs. Now, that's not to say that Dorian Williams works through his young age and isn't playing at a high level, because that's also possible. We've seen glimpses of it in the preseason. One of the things that, he does have 2 weaknesses. One weakness has been in his pass protection, or not his pass protection, excuse me, his pass coverage. Also, if you look at some of his weaknesses, he does have a tendency to chase play action, to chase motion, to chase clutter, so to speak. That's what a lot of these fake handoffs, motions across the formation, all these different things are used to try to confuse linebackers and get guys freed up in the second level in the passing game. He does have some of those issues, but he's getting better. And I think he's fundamentally getting better. The thing that Dorian Williams has that a lot of players don't have, he has extreme athleticism. He has a high motor, and he has a desire to be good. He doesn't take his place for granted. You can see him working on his craft. You can see him working to get better. And when you looked at that Pittsburgh game, pretty seamlessly came in for Matt Milano and did a really good job alongside Buffalo Joe Andreessen. But last season, PFF, his grade was only a 55.2. He was better in the run game than he was the passing game. He had limited reps last season on defense. Most of his reps were in special teams. So if you look at his tackles last season, he played 17 games. He did start 2 games, had 40 combined tackles, 23 of those solo. So in limited reps, he did have quite a bit of production. So I think Dorian Williams is one of those guys, and I think it's not a secret. And I think throughout the locker room, throughout the admin building at One Bills Drive, there is a huge amount of not only excitement about Dorian Williams and what he can bring to the field, but there's also a little bit of nervousness because, that is an area for the Bills that is limited. Right now, that linebacker room does not have a ton of reps. That's why a guy like Joe Andreessen comes in, has an amazing game in Pittsburgh. If he backs that up again this week, listen to Bobby Babbitt's press conference, and he talks about just that. One game does not make a career. We've talked about that on the show. But if he backs it up again this week, who knows? Sky's the limit. So Dorian Williams is a guy that I believe truly has to step up and play top-notch, high-level football for this Buffalo Bills team to have the success that they want to have. Finally, and before I get into number 4, I do want to say we appreciate everybody that watches the shows. We appreciate everybody that interacts over in the comments. Again, if you're on Facebook, if you're on X, hop over to YouTube. Get in on the interactions over there on the comment section. It's good stuff that we see that's good. We bring it up. We'll bring it up in the show. But also, again, and we've recently had people talking about it, tell your friends about us. We're an independent, man. We're powered by Believe, and Believe is part of our deal. But we're doing this as the 3 amigos, myself, Joe, and John Fina. This is something we've wanted to do for quite a while, and we've stepped out after the situation we had this offseason, and we've decided to do it. We're in with both feet, and we're having a great time. So, again, tell your friends, get those subs up. It helps us out. It helps you out. Also, overreactionbuffalo.com. Remember, you can go there. Eventually, you'll be able to do some interaction stuff there. We're going to be bringing some other things like some membership areas, as well as also apparel, and then stuff that's autographed or stuff that John and I put up there for the Bills Mafia as well. So we appreciate you as always. My fourth player that the Buffalo Bills need to step up this season for the Bills to be where they want to be in 2024. None other than veteran going into his 6th season defensive end, A.J. Epinesa. Epinesa is a guy that was on the free agent market, not a ton of interest. He had some. He decided to re-sign with the Bills, 2 years, $12 million. A contract, if you look at the numbers, below market value. $10 million of that, or a little over $10 million of that, is guaranteed. Epinesa in 5 years with the Bills has had 15.5 sacks. He had 6.5 sacks in 2022 and 2023. He also had 2 interceptions in 23, 1 forced fumble in 23, which is last season, then had 2 forced fumbles in 2022. A guy that is very, very active, very athletic, tends to get overpowered a little bit in some of his pass rush stuff, but he is starting to get home on a regular basis. You look at last season in 2023, A.J. Epinesa from PFF, his overall grade was 80.3. And his run number wasn't that bad either. Obviously, his pass rush numbers were higher than his run playing numbers, but still his run wasn't that bad. When you look at the defensive end situation, you've got Groot, Groot really flashed last week in Pittsburgh. Javon Solomon, the rookie out of Troy, NCAA sack leader in 2023, really flashed in Pittsburgh. The thing that concerns me about AJ Epinesa is I have not seen him flash yet in the preseason. You're going to have some technique issues. You're going to have some block issues or getting off block issues because you're wore out, folks. One, you're wore out. You've been going through camp. You're tired. Your legs are sore. Two, there's no game plan. You're not game planning and you're not doing the week's worth of study against your opponent. So a lot of stuff you're doing in these games is rather vanilla. But a guy like AJ Epinesa, who we're counting on to start, should flash by now in the preseason. Have not seen it. We're not going to see it this week because Sean McDermott's already come out and said starters will not play this week. We will not have starters on the field. I have not gotten verification that that's truly all starters or it's starters that we know are made men, the likes of McGovern, Josh Allen, Shakir, those kind of guys, Terrell Bernard. So when you look at AJ, we need, and even if it's not necessarily sack numbers, it's pressures and it's quarterback hits. That was the thing about last week with Javon Solomon. No sacks, but he had 2 quarterback hits and I think 3 pressures. So AJ Epinesa, freshly signed to a 2-year extension, $12 million, over $10 million guaranteed, needs to step up and be that guy. Because we know that Von Miller's there waiting in the wings to come out and be the third down guy. We know Von Miller's at advanced age, 35 years old, 2 years off an ACL injury. His best football is behind him. And that's, if you ask Von Miller, he'd say the same thing. His best football is behind him. But he can still be highly effective on third down and in passing down situations because, let's face facts, everyone, 80% Von Miller is better than 90-some% of the defensive ends in the league. So I truly believe that what they're doing with him is the right thing. We see Groot out there, and we continue to talk about his maturing at the position, so to speak. But when you look at Groot, I think Groot's just as good of a run player as he is a pass player. I don't think he's a pure pass rusher. I think he's the most complete defensive end we have. AJ Epinesa can play the run some, but I think he's more of a pass rusher, and we want to see that out of him. So I want to see, while he won't have the chance to shine this week because the starters aren't playing, to quote a good friend of mine, Steve Craigthorpe, who was the quarterback's coach at the Buffalo Bills back in the early 2000s when I was up there, and who then eventually came to Tulsa to be the head coach, was the head coach at Louisville before he was OC at LSU, and then had to step down for illness. As my good friend would say, who just passed away a few weeks ago, AJ Epinesa needs to get his chili hot, folks. He needs to get his chili hot. He needs to have that type of season. Because these Buffalo Bills, while we still have Josh Allen, and we still have Ed Oliver and Terrell and the likes, we are going to rely on a ton of rookies, young players inside of 3 years, and undervalued, maybe under the radar vets from the NFL that have been elsewhere that got cut, or guys that we're able to sign at a lower undervalue rate to have the type of season we have. So I look at David Edwards. I look at Cole Bishop. I look at Dorian Williams. I look at AJ Epinesa, and I say this: we need you, folks. We need you guys. We need you to play at the highest level you can play for us to have the type of season in 2024 that we want to have, not only as a franchise, but as a fan base known as the Bills Mafia. This has been the Big O Show on a Thursday night on the Buffalo Overreaction Sports Network. I appreciate you listening in. Thanks for watching on YouTube. If you're listening to the pod that will drop the next day, which is Friday, thanks for listening to that as well. Tell your friends, subscribe, hit the like button as always. Let's see how many likes we can get. Let's see if we can get to 500 likes. We haven't got the 500 likes on the show yet. I know a lot of you guys watch the shows or listen to the pods and don't hit that like button. Hit that like button, help us out, and we'll be back with more during the week. Obviously, Friday, if these walls could talk, boys, they'll be here. They got some great stories. They had Josh Stamer on last week. I don't know what they have in store for this week. Then Sunday, we'll have the Overreaction post-game show. We'll talk about that Panthers game. We'll also talk about the upcoming cuts that the Buffalo Bills are going to have to make to get down to that 53-man number that they need for the roster rolling into the season opener at home versus the Arizona Cardinals. So as always, folks, we appreciate you. Thanks for listening in. This is the Big O, Jerry Ostroski, and as always, much love and go Bills.
I'm still the same damn kid.